is 6:05. Hi, Claire. Welcome. Hello, Sam. It is 6:05 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in Miami Beach, Florida, where I am and where Deborah Driscoll is in New York City. And it is 8:05 in the morning in Australia. Yes, to all of you.
No, and I'll just pause there because I know Claire personally, and I know she's not in Australia, mate. She's in NZ.
New Zealand, yes, amazing. So welcome to our first Moving Fearlessly chat.
Cymbeline, how lovely.
Hello.
Before we jump into the program, we're going to do a little bit of a grounding to get us here onto Planet Zoom. So I'm going to pass the mic. I'm going to put everyone on mute, except for Deborah, who's going to lead us through just a little bit of a grounding meditation so we can land here on Planet Zoom, and then we'll jump into our program.
Okay, hello everybody. Thanks for being with us for the very first Moving Fearlessly chat. So great to connect with everybody in Australia, my other home, coming to you from Brooklyn at the moment. And just taking now this moment to just acknowledge the fact that you made it. You made it onto the Zoom. You're here. You're at the beginning. You're at the launch. And it's the beginning of your week. And to just take in a breath just in that moment. If it's available to you and you're comfortable doing so, you can also just let your eyes rest. You don't have to be watching the screen. You can just tune into the sound of my voice and tuning into yourself and tuning into breath. And in this moment, acknowledge your breath as it comes into your body and feel where it lands. Is it sitting up high in your chest, around the floating ribs, or does it go further down into your belly? Just get curious about your breath, just for the next couple of moments, and needing to do nothing else other than tuning in to your breath. Where does it naturally go? And how is it feeling today? Does it feel like it wants to deepen? Or do you feel on the out breath that you actually just want to let out a sigh? Just allowing wherever you are in this moment to be the perfect place for you to be right now. And now as we take in the next breath, I'm going to invite you with your mind's eye and your amazing imagination to see that breath going all the way down deep into your belly and lighting up a fire in your belly. Taking in the biggest, deepest breath you've taken all day, deep into the belly and lighting a fire. It may be just a little spark. It may be a bonfire. Whatever it is perfect for you. But seeing now the fire in your belly. What fuels that fire? Breathing now and keeping your consciousness on your breath, but now directing it to the center of your chest, to the heart space, and seeing your heart energy light up for the day. What are you feeling? What do you wish to feel? Just being okay with whatever it is that's there. What's lighting your fire? How are you feeling? And now next, we're going to take that breath into the expansiveness of our mental mind-brain space. Is your mind racing? Is it calm? And when you check in there, what thought is driving you today, into your week, into your day, in your life at this moment? When we're moving fearlessly, we're moving with the fire in our belly, with an open heart, and without thought leadership, and activating all those parts of you and all of the many, many parts that make up you, taking in the biggest, deepest breath you've taken all day and letting it out, allowing the edges of your mouth to turn up just a little bit, bringing a smile to your face, opening your eyes, rejoining us on the screen. We may be separated, but we're actually all together in this moment, in this breath. And I welcome you to the very first Moving Fearlessly chat. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you so much for that, Deborah. We have this little gesture that you may see people doing this. We call this elevated sparkleation. So it's a little bit of a celebration. So thank you so much for that, Deborah. I jumped the gun. We have well, two traditions. One, I want to acknowledge the elder in our community here, which is Jen Barkman. So Jen Barkman, thank you for being here. And normally what we do is we request your permission before we begin. Are we ready to begin, Jen Barkman? Yes, amazing. I also, just as a point of introduction, I want to say that my name is Eduardo Placer. I am the founder of Fearless Communicators. We are a US-based company, and I want to acknowledge that we operate on indigenous land. I am currently standing on Miami Beach, where the indigenous community is the Miccosukee Indian tribe. And if there's an opportunity for you to acknowledge the land that you are on, I invite you to share that in the chat. On what ancestral land you are on. I want to acknowledge ancestors and elders past, present, and emerging. I want to acknowledge that that's a tradition that we picked up by being in Australia and doing work in Australia that we have brought into the United States in our spaces. And because of this moment currently, what we're living in the United States, I want to acknowledge the existence and the prevalence of institutional racism, misogyny, and LGBTQ+ phobia, and how we use our diverse voices and bodies and stories in service of the dismantling of those systems to ensure equity, justice, and freedom for all. Thank you so much for joining us this morning for Moving Fearlessly, our first chat in a series that we will be having in Australia and also in the United States. I am the founder of Fearless Communicators. As I mentioned before, we're a diverse, inclusive public speaking coaching company, and we work with thought leaders on what they say and how they say it. And as a queer man in the space of looking at the service that I'm here to offer in the world, one of the things that emerged for me as I was looking at the world and looking at who was speaking at conferences was the lack of presence of women's voices. And I chose to stand in allyship and an adjacency and created this program called the Fearless Force, Public Speaking for Visionary Women Leaders. We have done this program now 19 times. We've done it in 7 cities, in 3 continents. We've done it in New York, in San Francisco, in Tel Aviv, also in Sydney, in Brisbane, and in Melbourne. We have 3 women on this call who are graduates or who are alumna of our program. And one of the statistics that I'm really proud of, including Deborah Driscoll, one of the statistics I'm really proud of is in that 46% of the women who participated are diverse in race, in ethnicity, and also sexual orientation. So we found ourselves as a company, as an organization in mid-March, lost, like so many people. I have been in exile from New York City, which is my home, since early March. I'm currently in Miami Beach. So I'm still out of the same suitcase that I packed when I went on a business trip to San Francisco. And I don't know when I'm going to be going home. New York City does not feel like the space for me to go to at the moment. And what we knew in uncertain times, what we could do is we could lean on the expertise of our community of thought leaders around the conversations and the questions that feel most relevant and most resonant to the moment. And it is in that space that we started what we called our Fearless Chat series, which we do every Tuesday and Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern time, which is 7 a.m. Australia time. So we have had various people from all over the world coming in. We had the privilege of hosting our anniversary call of our Fearless Force program, the 4-year anniversary. We had over 50 women, alumna. There have been over 100 women participate, coming from all over the world. And then Johanna De Ruyter, who many of you may know, who is an alumna of our Fearless Force program in Sydney. She's also someone who is in a co-facilitator training program with us to co-facilitate the program. Was like, what about Australia? How about doing one of these in Australia? So it was very much out of that desire and question, and knowing that 7 a.m. was a little too early. 8 a.m. is kind of cuspy, but we figured let's give 8 a.m. a shot as an opportunity to show up in service of our Australian community and also elevate Australian voices in their thought leadership around what's emerging to be of service there. So that is the backstory of how we find ourselves in this moment. And for those of you who don't know, I am so grateful that you chose this Monday morning to be with us so that we can move fearlessly together through this week. So with all of that as a context, Johanna De Ruyter, it is such an honor to be here with you. If you can unmute yourself, I invite you to unmute yourself, my darling.
Released.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello. When I see Johanna, I always say, yo, Oklahoma. It's like, I have an acute condition called show-tunitis, which may be a little full-on, as Australians like to say, but I do tend to burst out into spontaneous song and dance. I can't help it. I can't contain it. As many of you know, Johanna is the founder of Moving Communication. She's also a thought leader, a playback artist. She's a theater professional practitioner, an accomplished, brilliant storyteller, also a similar communication coach and public speaking coach. So just honored to be an allyship in the world and you of getting people in their fucking bodies so they can show up in service of who they are in the world.
Yeah.
So we are going to have a conversation today, a dynamic conversation about how we can animate how we show up online. And it's so easy to just be stuck in these little squares. So Johanna would just love a little bit of background, you know, on you, for those of you who may not know you, or some who may know different new things about you, and an opportunity to kind of jump in and get to work.
Yeah. Okay, great. Wonderful. So wonderful to be here. And it's so great to see the familiar faces of, I can see Dare and Cymbeline and Sam and Jen and Marga. It's, yeah, I'm really touched you turned up. So lovely to be here in this space with you on this, like Eduardo said, the beginning of we don't know what is going to emerge from us coming together. Yeah, really thrilled. And a little bit about me, where do I start? I was actually, you know, my shtick really is about the body and how we bring the body in to communication. That's why I'm called Move. That's why I named the work I do Moving Communication. And on reflecting on coming on the call, I was, you know, really making that connection between my story and this work with the body. And it ties into when I did the Fearless Communicators program, which not all of you have done, but there are some of us who have, and it's very story-based, making the connection with our personal story to, you know, what we do in the world. What is that connection? And when I did it, the connection to this story of shame around my sexuality and different elements of that birthed, and just really realizing the connection, that journey with shame and how it ties into the work I do with the body. Because at the time, when I was in my teens, there was so many different conflicting emotions that were showing up. And I remember I was sitting on a train at some point having these panic attacks, and my body just took over. My heart's racing, and everyone's looking at me, and they're going to see that I'm this terrible person, and I shouldn't have done what I've done, and I've done these terrible things. And I had to jump out of the train. And that led me to being in control of my body. I discovered the gym and working out and being healthy. I remember I dug all of this energy and conflicting emotion into creating a garden and tending my body with good food and strength in the gym. And yet, all of a sudden, one day, bang, this boil erupted on my body with all this uncontained and emotion around how I felt about myself. And having to be with that led me on this path into therapy, really, and into finding who I was and what my story is. And that led me to theatre, to finding my voice. And then there's various other body-based work that I've done in massage and wanting to work with the body energetically, and in martial arts and in yoga. And so for me, the body has always been central, the central site on which I've come to myself. And I think, well, I believe for all of us, it is. It is the intelligence that we don't always listen to. So, and disregard. And here we are in this context and in this conversation, which we titled Energizing Communication Online. And it's a very disembodied space. So since we've all been coming online, I'm shocked by how talking heads it's become. I recall being on my third Zoom call and loving all the communication and the people I was meeting and the opportunity to go far and wide and international, and just feeling really quite drained. And then when it came my turn to check in around how I was feeling, I found myself saying, I'm really exhausted, and my ass feels really sore. And so I got up.
Relate to that. If you can relate to that, please raise your hand, or please like type something.
Yes, that's right. Who else has had this experience?
Please.
But what happened in that moment, I'll just finish, because I got up and I just started dancing. And the whole group, all the dynamics changed in that group. Everybody woke up and went, oh yeah. And it's that moment that I love, when you bring the body in, all the dynamics shift. So I hope that sets a little bit of the context.
So I have you on Spotlight Video. I'm gonna move the so I had Deborah on Spotlight Video for a long time. Thank you, Claire, for bringing that up so that we didn't have that. So Johanna, we actually have there's a name for that now. The Zoom exhaustion. It's called Zoomitis.
Zoomitis, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you suffer from Zoomitis, can we get a what about that? And I had shared on a platform, I talked about, the exhaustion and prevalence of Zoom meetings is called Zoomitis. And some guy responded and he was like, oh my God, for a second I thought you said Zoom tits. And I was like, what? Like, I don't know. So I was like, there's Zoomitis and then there's Zoom tits. It's a whole other conversation.
Well, it is a little bit like that, because it all finishes about here.
Right about here, yeah. So I love that. And I think you're so right, Johanna. I think that there is, we forget that we have a body when all we see is our shoulders and our head.
Yes.
And it's interesting. I heard a statistic once that sitting is the new smoking. I feel like everything is the new smoking. Like loneliness is the new smoking. Sitting is the new smoking. Black is the new smoking. Everything is the new smoking. But I think that, but we are sitting.
Yes.
Right? So much. And I love that it's about the embodiment and the movement that I think elevates how we end up showing up. And it's such a disruptor. Like no one expects you to do it, that I think it's a total game changer and has people listen in a different way. So I know that you have lots of strategies for that, and I'm excited to hear what Johanna has to say about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, as much as it's moving the body is also moved when we engage the emotions as well, and the imagination, I would say. So they're the core, because a lot of the influences that come into my work are through applied improvisation and spontaneity, so we're going. Let's. I'm going to step in now and start engaging us and hearing from us, because I think the first thing when coming into this communication online is to meet each other and actually to hear each other's voice. So I'm going to invite us to put ourselves on gallery and to unmute, release ourselves. We're a smaller group, so we can start to hear from each other. So let's unmute. And Robin, if we got Robin here, can we get a visual on Robin Katz? Come in, Robin Katz. Have we got Robin Katz, or is she not? Is she left?
Jo, I'm just moving at the moment, so it's not good for me to go on visual. I will join you guys shortly.
Great.
Oh, okay, great.
In a more full form. I'm just listening for now.
That's nice to hear you, Robin. Thanks for letting us know.
Lovely to be here.
Yeah, great. And Dare, you're on mute still. Does everyone know, we should go over the Zoom protocol. I'm making an assumption that everyone uses Zoom, but the bottom left is the mute function. Yep. Okay, great. Let us know if you don't know, because I don't want to make that assumption. It's always dangerous. So let's meet each other. So the way I'm going to do that is and hear each other's voice. I think that's another element of this. When I say the disembodied communication, we can't feel each other's energy. How do we get to feel each other in this medium? So what we're going to do is we're going to greet each other in different ways. So it's going to look like this. I'm going to call out to someone. I can see everyone's name. I'm going to say, and I'm going to greet Deborah. She is, in this case, a long-lost friend, but I'm going to greet Deborah as a long-lost friend. So, and I'm going to invite you to be a little bit theatrical. So I'm going to say, Deborah. And Deborah is going to mirror back exactly what I said and did. Yep. And then she's going to turn to someone else and she's going to greet someone else like a long lost friend, and that person will mirror back exactly what they see. Yep. So we'll start to meet each other. So let's start with that. Deborah.
Johanna. Sam.
Thank you, Deborah.
And you say Sam. So Sam, you reflect. I'll just jump in there. So Sam, you reflect back to Deborah what she said. Okay. So she said Sam. Yep.
Okay. Deborah. Marge.
Sam. Cymbeline. Marge. Jen.
Cymbeline.
Claire.
Eduardo. Dare.
Robin. Poor Robin's still not there.
She's there.
Our long-lost friend.
Yes, that's right. Let's all call out to Robin as our long lost friend. 1, 2, 3,
Robin!
go. Robin! So that's lovely. So it's worth noting in this exploration of engaging in Zoom and bringing the body and our humanness into it, what opens in terms of that? In Are you having? I'm having a Zoom technical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's because
Yes, there
we're all
is.
on mute. It's because we're all open also, I think. So
Yeah,
let's
right.
temporarily mute ourselves for a second. Okay, so Johanna, Johanna,
Yes.
you had a question. You had said how that made
Yes.
us feel.
So just to notice, what are some reflections on how did that influence us energizing this connection and being here together? What are some core elements that we did to do that?
You want to raise your hand, I can also call on you. It seems like Cymbeline, you're unmuted. So I don't know if this is a great opportunity for Cymbeline to share.
You know, one of the things that I was just thinking then is how, you know, the little emoji, it's the hug emoji, and I didn't know it was the hug emoji for ages. It was just like the little face and the little hands. And then I realized, and so it's almost like a kind of future, like they were seeing the future when they did it, because what I can see is like when we throw our arms out, we can't see them, you know, and so thinking, it's so, I mean, we understand the gesture that each time people did it in that way, it made sense because we got it. But when people, when we're trying to communicate in this space, the hands, you know, their sort of hands come forward and they're still in the screen, and it's a completely different way of relating to each other and thinking about how, you know, we don't usually think about how we look to be able to relate to people in the space. It's like a different, that's what I was thinking.
And they,
Cymbeline, yes.
And it's what I hear, Cymbeline, and what you say is a number of things in terms of this dimension of communication. People don't really think about the frame. You know, we've only got this square box, so how do we express ourselves in this square box? How am I seen in this square box? And part of that is what's behind us. That's something I've loved around Zoom is that blurring of our humanity, that we're going in terms of particularly around professional communication, because you're going into people's personal spaces and seeing, you know, everything that's behind them, and it all speaks, it all says something about them. And then the other thing is to bring in the body, and particularly hands in communication. I'm always saying to people, hands are very important in terms of communication. On some really deep dynamic in our mind, if we don't see people's hands, we trust them less. So I always find that very interesting in terms of this communication, because often it's, you know, you'll see people up here and they won't even use their hands. So I always make a point of bringing in my hands at some point so people can see. I think it's that, you know, it's an empty hand because I'm not sure how much you've heard about that, the notion of the reptilian mind and our desire, the fight and flight, to always stay safe, that on some level, if we can't see people's hands, we don't know if they're going to get us. So it's very instinctual. So yeah, hands are fascinating to bring in.
That's a fabulous little nugget. Hashtag no big deal, Johanna De Ruyter. That's like the Monday morning lesson to take into the week. That was fabulous.
What did you find? What did you find the lesson?
I had no idea about that.
Yes.
And because people are always very curious about what to do with their hands. Like as a public, people are always like, what do I do with my hands? What do I do with my hands?
Yes.
And it's interesting that in the context of Zoom, people don't have to deal with it. And it's a missing part of communication.
It is.
That actually builds greater trust.
Yes. Yeah. Sitting on my hands.
Yeah.
So let's all put up our hands now, and let's I like to do this. Let's see everyone's hands, since we're and just notice again, always noticing the difference so that it brings. That's why I love the sparkulation. Eduardo's sparkulation. You know, it's very important to bring into your communication. But we're here looking at Zoom communication. There was something I wanted to introduce us to as well in terms of energizing. And I raised this earlier, and Eduardo said, "What? Have you got a whiteboard to use?" So I'm going to ask you to make me host.
Yes.
If one of you can.
Johanna, one of the things that I just want to, just before we move on to the whiteboard, one of the things that I thought, and this is, I want to double click on something that Cymbeline mentioned, is that I felt like it's very easy in the box to make our communication be here.
Yes. Yes.
And once like you gave us the opportunity to like lean in, it's almost like instead of breaking the fourth wall in the theater, it's like breaking the screen. It felt almost energetically like I was receiving the person, right?
Yes.
Just a subtle intention that I feel takes us out of the digital space and has us actually feel the other person. So that's something that I clocked that felt very different through the exercise that I thought was really awesome. And with that, I'm going to make you host.
Yeah, thanks. And that's a really great point, Eduardo, because, and it's a very core element, I would say, that often gets overlooked, and that is about the feeling state and expressiveness. We particularly in professional communication, that gets dropped away because we err on the side of, you know, wanting to be, you know, credible and serious, and, you know, that equals rational and non-expressive. So
and
it's...
Johanna, I also want to add that from my experience, and I say this as a queer Latinx man, my family's Caribbean, my family's Cuban, that modality from my experience is also patriarchal.
Yes, yes,
right?
well, yes.
It's also colonial, right? That's part of our dismantling in the space of communication is how we have been programmed that my expressiveness is femininity or it's other. You know, when actually what we're after is stayed, still.
Yes.
English.
That's right.
It's like when you watch like the Spanish soap operas, it's a hot mess because everyone's like, ah! It's so big, you know?
Yes.
My people.
Yeah. That's right. Exactly. And I think it's, you know, I've always found that very fascinating around the body as well, because the body is other in terms of rationality. And in our culture, we highly value rationality, whereas the body is the seat of emotions, and it's uncontrollable and unknown and spontaneous. And they're certainly, in terms of my my feminist beliefs, it ties in, you know, and supports, you know, how I live and show up in life as much as I can. So the body. Now I just wanted to go back to how we continue to meet each other and introduce the whiteboard, because I think in terms of energizing online, I've been discovering this, and I don't know, I know Eduardo said he hadn't yet, and I'm not sure how many of you had, and because it's a wonderful creative space to play around with. So you'll see I've just opened a whiteboard. So if you take your mouse up the top of your screen, some screens are different. I know iPads might be different. You should find a view options, and if you there's a drop down box, and if you drop down, you'll see annotate. Yeah. Up the top, view options, or maybe it's down the bottom. You'll find, it may not say view options, but there's it might, maybe, yep, who's got that? Someone's got that. Yep, here we go. So put up, who's not finding it? Maybe just speak up so we can.
I'll watch.
You can't find it?
No, what am I looking for? Can I draw?
So use your mouse, engage your mouse. Up the top of your screen, usually it's a little view options, you know, option, and you drop the box down and you'll see annotate.
I can see that, but I've got original size or enter full screen.
Oh, right. So maybe as host, you don't get that because you're sharing the screen. So after, after me, you can after, I can show you more about it later if you like, but you can see, look, everyone started.
Oh, I found it. I found it.
You found it. Great. Wonderful. So, yeah, I was going to invite us to keep checking in on this emotional level. We can put in words. What are you thinking and feeling? Let's just reflect on being here together. What are you thinking and feeling being here in this on this call with us right now? So you can see there's text there. Let yourself get a bit expressive, but let's start to get a reflection of what's alive with us here in this group. Bubbles in the tummy. What's alive with you right now in terms of your thoughts and your feelings being here? You can either open a text box and write something, hello, or let's start to see someone's growing. Oh, that's beautiful. Working, getting ready for work.
It's work. It's not work.
Yeah, work.
It's work.
Good to be here. Cymbaline's here.
I can't access the whiteboard and stuff because I'm driving, but I'll just say that I'm actually feeling really connected to other human beings.
Oh, that's lovely to hear, Robin. Wonderful to hear. Thanks for sharing that and bringing yourself in. Appreciated. Great, wonderful. And so let's get a bit creative. What if you wanted to express again on a feeling level, what is it that let's choose a couple of colors to express what feelings are bubbling up in you as we meet in this space. Oh, I love all the creativity, Claire. I love all those stars. So let's fill the space with the different feelings that are alive within us as we sit here on Monday morning. Sort of blue, bit of red reaching up. The circular motions. Opening out, the week is opening out. That's how I'm reading that. Up and down. Beautiful. Okay, so we'll pause and just have a look. There we are, big smile maybe. That's what I see. So let's unmute. What's a couple of things that you see? What's alive with us right now? What are you seeing? Unmute and just share a little bit about what you're seeing in this imagery.
Playfulness.
Yes, playfulness. Oh, fantastic. Green. What are you seeing in this imagery? Where does it touch you? What does it make you think?
Layers.
Layers. Yep, you're starting to see lots of layers.
It's okay to start with not figuring it out.
That's right. That's nice that the invitation is you don't have to figure it out. There's not a logical sense here. What does it make you? I'm going to invite you. What does it make you think and feel?
Comfortable,
Maybe
no pressure.
Comfortable. It makes you feel no pressure, so it's very inviting.
It makes me feel curious.
So let's maybe just put up your hand. Deborah, you were going to say something? Yep.
Yeah, it makes me feel curious because I'm wondering who's written certain things and now I want to know more.
Yes, that's right. And that's what we could do. You could then invite people into that. And someone else was going to say something?
I was going to say it makes me feel playful rather than kind of, rational, as you're saying. And also just want to add that I'm doing this on my phone and I think it's more limited. I couldn't find any of those cute stars and stuff, and I couldn't do chat on the whiteboard.
Yeah. Yeah, there are those limitations of the different technologies that we're meeting each other on. Yeah, pardon me, I should have really checked that out. In fact, I would encourage you to do that. But good to note that. Yep.
I'm raising my
Eduardo?
hand, Johanna. Yeah. It feels really messy. And
Yes.
I'm kind of okay with it. It reminds me of that. There's this, like Britain's Got Talent, where the elementary school came on stage and sang the Queen song. I'm gonna make a minute, yeah, da 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 da, but I'm a cannonball, ba da da da. Don't stop me now. It is
Right.
a disaster. It is 40 elementary school kids running on the stage, and it's complete and utter madness. And it's so joyous. It is just
Yes.
so joyful. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm present to. It's like no perfectionism. Let it be messy. Who the hell cares?
Yes. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's right. And this is in terms of Zoom, something I've discovered really, people love it. And it opens up, like we said, that playfulness. Yes, Mark, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that something I noticed was that it made, like, even though I couldn't tell who was making the marks, it made me very aware of others and
Yes.
And the shared space.
Yes.
And like expressing myself and allowing the space for others to express themselves at the same time.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, that's right. So it starts to, as I bring in other realms of awareness, really, of ourselves, and like you say, encourages us to express ourselves. So we bring ourselves, hopefully more fully forward into a connection here. So, and something that I've also learned that's very interesting about using the whiteboard, people never want to stop. So if you intend on using it, really let people, play with it. And you can start to ask people. If I've used it in different ways, you can get people to write things, and then you can get people to start owning who's done what by going up to, it says spotlight on mine, up the little top bar there, and there's an arrow, see, and so that will say me. That's Johanna. I wrote that. If everyone wants to grab that, it's either says spotlight or arrow, and we can start to own our piece and speak to it. So maybe we'll try that since I've so choose. Has everyone found that? Let me see.
No.
People are finding. Yeah, maybe on the functionality. Sometimes on the iPad. You said an iPad, didn't you, Marg?
Phone.
Oh, the phone. Yes. Yeah. Sorry. It is quite limited, the phone. In fact, yes. I'll have to do some more investigating how you would access this functionality. But let's just hear from a couple of people. Conflicted and connected. Jen dares getting the kids off to school is very busy. You can see Stams. Great, good to be here. Yeah, so you can start to speak to some of these, to whatever people have shared, and invite people to express that. So let's, I'm going to clear this. We're going to finish now with the, with the joy of the whiteboard. I'm going to clear that and stop, and I'll stop sharing now.
I want it. I want it.
That is always what happens. People do not want to leave it. So really, it's not, as I said, sometimes it's about moving the body, sometimes it's about moving the imagination, and always about moving the feelings. Coming in, I was thinking really coming into these conversations, and something, I'll share this with you actually, because I created a little thinking about this. Let me see, we've got the sharing. Coming into the meeting this morning, my main, really key messages are about engaging the body and bringing that openness, moving us away from this fixation on rationality as a way to understand each other and the world and our communication and our contact. It's how do we balance the both? This is, you can see here, there's a balance here of both of those. And we move in and out of those to engage the imagination, the feeling, and our physical being as well. Thinking is important. Of course, it's important. Be thinking about what's my intention in communicating. You know, what is my purpose? What do I want them to do? You know, planning and preparing your content, how you're going to use technology is important. But then coming to feeling as well. And this often gets left out. How do I feel? What do I want them to feel? What feelings are emerging in our conversation? And how do I address feelings? And then also acting. What do I want them doing? What actions do I want people to take? What activity will support my intention and promote feelings I would like to engender? So I wanted to engender playfulness because I know playfulness opens up our connection and our creativity, for instance. So I'm just noticing the time at 8:50 and it's gone so quickly.
Does anyone have any questions for Johanna? Anything top of mind from anything that she shared, best practices, anything that they're just like, ooh, I'd be really curious about that?
Hi, Johanna, how are you?
Great, dear. Lovely to see you.
Yeah, great. I think for me, I work now in a very corporate environment, and that white male way of rational, and I really feel like I've put myself very much in that box. That like this is my usual background, which I switch backgrounds to this is my background if I want authority in the space.
Yes.
Otherwise, I sit on like just a regular living room chair, have the fireside chat with my team, that kind of thing. But what do you think about in terms of that balance of feeling or rational and other life? What is what's a way to ensure that you have the right kind of authority, but still bring your heart to your process? And any thoughts on being taken seriously while?
Great question. And what we're going to do, I'm going to tap into the knowledge of us as a group, and that is the question. Dare's question is, how do you maintain your credibility while also bringing in your playfulness? Is that that's what I hear, Dare. You know, this field of expressiveness, really, because particularly in the white male world. So what I'm going to invite us to do is everyone's going to write an answer on a piece of paper to that. Just has everyone got a piece of paper? Or if not, open as something on your screen. We're all going to write different answers to that and share it. So just sit tight for a moment, Dare. What would your answer to Dare be? How do we maintain our credibility and be in this expressive field? Often it's broken down into femininity and masculinity, that binary. And then we'll just go one at a time. Just very briefly, what was your answer? I'll start. My answer, Dare, is it is about flexibility, about being able to shift from those states and being willing to shift those different states, the rational you and the ability to play. And it is about timing. So being aware when to bring that in. And largely that is about sensing that. So let's hear from, very briefly, what's your answer? Just one at a time. Yep, Cymbeline.
Yeah, I was just differentiating between being playful, which we've done quite a lot this morning, but being just very alive. And
Yes.
I think with playfulness, you really want to measure that based on the setting. But being very alive actually energizes any space at all and never compromises your credibility.
Yeah. Yep.
Ooh, that's elevated sparkle.
Very good. That's a great translation.
Kimberly.
Someone else, what would you like to share with Dear? Sam?
I think another thing that I found that has worked for me when someone else is leading is if they are playful and they're more emotionally expressive about what they care for. Let's say there is a goal and they show their emotions about how much they care for that goal or how much they care for the people in the group. Um, it makes it very easy to be a part of that conversation with more engagement. And there's a lot of respect for someone who cares for you. So I feel that has really worked for me sometimes.
Mm. Anyone else? Claire? Yes.
I feel like mine is very similar to Cymbeline, but maybe just like turned a little bit. I think I really want to honor presence and being you and just being who you are in honoring your own presence and whatever you bring to the table, because people are tuning in to you and spotlighting whatever you have to offer. And so if you're really disconnected with what you're present with, you know, being joyful in that.
Yeah. Yeah. I hope that helps, Dear.
Yeah, I had something a little bit different. It's Robin here.
Oh, Robin, great. Thank you.
I was thinking about the power of speaking from a role. So sometimes you can actually say two different things, like speaking from the role as the leader of this team, what I need to say, you know, what there's for me to say is this, but then and speaking as a mother who's also struggling with children at home and blah, 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 whatever, then you can actually bring in more of yourself, but remembering and being explicit about context and your role in the system.
That's very true. It's great. Yeah, wonderful. Yep, sparklation to everyone. Oh no, it's not sparklation. Sorry, it's timing. Yes,
No, I have a question. So Dare,
yes,
because you asked a very specific question that felt to me from your experience as a woman being in spaces that are male dominated, and I just was curious if I'm not a woman, I don't present as a woman, I don't experience the world as a woman, if if my feedback is of value to you or not. My point of view around this.
Yes, it is. Because I think it would actually be an interesting question probably for me to ask a lot of the men that I work with.
Yes.
You know,
to
say, okay, like the team I work in now is almost entirely women, but since I've been in this company, I was mostly with all men, and men who had a very different life experience to me, and I think thought I was really, really weird. So I think I really toned things down to try and fit in that.
Yes.
Would have been interesting to say, but I think they would have totally freaked out if I said, so I think you think I'm weird. What do you reckon? You know?
To name it. It's the naming and the claiming it. You know.
They would have flipped.
And also little exercises like that whiteboard exercise, I have seen, you know, really I've been working with, you know, in corporate organizations, it opens them up. Even the little greeting opens people up. And I think that's what I mean by really flexibility, but also courage, really, to stand in your truth of because you are everything. You are that rational, logical person, and you are the playful person. And, you know, the benefits of both have benefits.
And my
so
to answer Dare, sorry, what I wrote down was take a breath.
Yes.
Take a breath and bring you. They don't even know they need it. Right.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's that moment of that breath grounding back to that body.
Yes.
Like having that courage, that aliveness. I also thought of that line from Flashdance, take your passion, make it happen. That also speaks to Sam, like leading from passion, leading from that. I think that brings the aliveness. So that's what emerged for me.
Yeah. I would say thanks, Eduardo. And I would say over and over, do not underestimate playfulness. Like Cymbeline said, playfulness is energizing. And you can start with very small ingredients of that and build it up to really huge. But in every time I've brought that in the corporate settings I've worked with, every time it opens people. And when you start to make sense of, well, what's happened here? What's the difference this has made to us and how we connect? So it brings in that rationality and it's like, oh yes, it does. It really makes sense.
So Johanna, I want to thank you and acknowledge you for a fabulous, dynamic, engaging conversation this morning, moving fearlessly into the week. I thought that the whiteboard was fabulous. I think pooling people, having a Post-it note, having people engage and offer as a way to democratize the experience of questions and being in a space of questions. I thought that was a really fabulous tool. And I thought you modeled that really beautifully, and having us really engage in communication, breaking through the fourth wall, right? I thought was also really, really wonderful. So thank you so much, Johanna De Ruyter. Elevated Sparkulation to Johanna De Ruyter.
Yes.
Our goal is to be running these conversations weekly. We are going to be, so I have a question. If people have like a minute or two, does this time work? Or doing it a little bit later, would that be more helpful? Like an hour later, or is it kind of 6 to 1, half dozen later?
Yes,
you have to keep in mind you're asking the people who did show up at 8 o'clock. Ask the people.
Yeah, that's true.
Did this time not work for them? But I think it's good. But Monday is tough.
Okay.
Yeah, Monday's not.
On a Monday was like I was very much a Sunday night. Now I've got to be somewhere 8 o'clock on Monday.
Are Sundays better?
No,
not at 7 in the morning. Not at 8 in the morning. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna dance. We're gonna dance around.
We'll be playing around with.
Yeah, we're gonna play around with a little bit of time, so that next week, Johanna is gonna be interviewing me, and what we're gonna be going through is a process which I call Your Story Now. There are lots of stories that we're in the habit of sharing, and there's a story that is very relevant to be speaking to the current moment that we are all living. So it is a powerful framework within which to be in the discovery of what the story is by beginning to think about who it is that we're speaking to. So there's a distinction that's emerging for me, which is not what do I want to say or what do I want to speak, but instead what wants to be spoken, what wants to be shared, and targeting and telling and sharing your story into the listening that matters in this moment. So that's a conversation that we're going to have next week. So stay tuned to your emails around that. And I can't wait for Johanna to be in the principal seat and leading me through that conversation. Okay. If you don't mind, for those of you who are here, I would love to take a little screenshot of all of us just to recognize and acknowledge that this. Something happened to my computer.
Let's all get our hands up.
Well, hands up. Yes. Elevated sparkle. Yes.
Right. Wonderful.
Thank you so much for joining us, and may you move fearlessly through this week. And my hope is to see you again very, very soon. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Johanna,
bravo. Thank you.
Johanna, if you could just stay on for a second.
Yeah, we will. Yeah, great. Bravo. Thanks, everyone. Look forward to more.
Thanks, Johanna.
Beautiful to see everyone this morning, and I look forward to more.
Me too.
I love the backgrounds, Claire. I love the paintings. I love the trees. I love your scarf. It's winter. It's like 90. It's summer out here, but I feel like, all right, it's winter.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Claire's in New Zealand. It's even colder.
It's even, oh my God.
Sam, lovely to see you, Sam.
Oh, lovely to see you, Sam. Bye, Claire.
Oh, great. Beautiful. Well, that was the first.
Now I'm host.
Woo! Train's left the station.